Okay, next, without further ado, we are honored to invite Dr. Samila Muthukrishnan, Principal Investigator of this campaign, to deliver her welcoming remarks. Dr. Samila, the floor is yours.
Thank you to both the MCs. Okay, good morning everyone, and a very warm welcome to our seminar today, titled Green Mind, Greener Campus, Boosting Campus Carbon Literacy. So we have all the renowned speaker here, Dr. Fong, Dr. Hijaz, Dr. Archana, and Dr. Sasnizam. And I'm Dr. Shamila here, and it's truly a pleasure to see so many of you here today, demonstrating your commitment to a more sustainable future. So before we dive into the core of our discussion, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to my two dedicated postgraduate students, Ms. Nurfatin Shuhada and Mr. Vikramadithan Govindasamy, whose invaluable support has been instrumental in bringing the seminar to a fruition. Thank you, you both. Today, we are here to talk about something incredibly vital, which is about carbon literacy. In simple terms, it's about understanding the carbon impact of our everyday activities, and more importantly, knowing how to reduce them. So why is this seminar significant? Firstly, because we aim to promote environmental responsibility among all of us, be it students, faculty members, or even admin staff. Secondly, by understanding our carbon footprint, we can collectively identify the hotspot for reduction within our campus operation and daily lives. The insight gained will also inform policy and strategy, helping our university develop more effective sustainability initiative. Crucially, this seminar is designed to foster behavioral change. Awareness is the first step towards action, and we hope to inspire greener habits in everyone. Hopefully, you'll have, towards the end of the seminar, you might be inspired to move towards a greener habits. Ultimately, our effort here today will align with the university's broader sustainability goal, contributing to a healthier planet. And finally, this is a fantastic educational opportunity for all of us to learn, share, and grow together. So there's a QR code for the questionnaire, but my postgraduate student will share it later during the lunch. Please help us to, take the short survey and help us to understand the current perception and, tailor, so that we can tailor a future initiative. We have so I hope we will have an engaging session. And thank you once again for joining us. Let's embark on this journey towards boosting our carbon literacy and fostering a truly green campus. Enjoy the talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarmila, for those insightful words. Those who want to participate in the survey, feel free to approach me later. I'll share the QR code with you guys. Yep. Right. Now, without further ado, we would like to invite Dr. Fong to share his insights on understanding our carbon footprint, global science to the campus impact, which will be delivered by Dr. Fong Chong Son. He is a senior lecturer at the Institute of Advanced Science, IAS. Right. Let's give a warm round of applause to Dr. Fong.
Okay.
You can be with us at the stage also, Dr.
Yeah, sure. Slide control.
I will help you. You want to control your slide or do you want me to help you?
Sorry?
You want to control your slide or do you want me to help you?
No, I'll control the slide. No worries. Just put it in.
You send it to me.
Yeah, alright. Okay.
All right. Very good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Fong. So I'm with Institute for Advanced Studies, IAS. But I'm also associated with Sustainable Development Center. So, hi, Afan. So, yeah, Afan is also from UMSDC. Did I miss out anyone? Okay. So, this is a very, first of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Dr. Samila for extending this invite to me to share about a topic which is very close to my heart, something that the university is also putting in a lot of effort in advancing, but not a lot of people know about it. So this is also the importance of why we need to do climate literacy. So today I'm going to share about what is carbon footprint. So maybe just a very quick poll or a survey here. How many of you have not heard of carbon footprint? Can I see a raise of hand? Only one, two, don't be shy, three. Seriously? Okay, but three out of maybe like 50 of you here. So I think means that a big portion of you know what is carbon footprint. Assuming that you are not too shy to raise your hand to admit. So today what I'm going to do is that I will bring you through to explain. Sorry. Hello. Is it working? Oh, battery low. Okay. So maybe I'm too excited this morning. So the battery want to play some tricks on me. So what I'm going to share with you today is to bring you through what is carbon footprint for those that are not well aware. I also know that there are some online audience. So what is carbon footprint from a global scale, and then zooming in into Malaysia's perspective, and also zooming in closer to Universiti Malaya. As a campus, what are we doing on the end to improve this situation? So this will be roughly the outline of my presentation today. I'm going to bring you through the global perspective to talk a little bit about what is carbon footprint, the sources of emission, and then I'll show you the campus impact, a case of itself, what are we doing, and how are we progressing towards a carbon neutral campus. And if we have time, we will do a small activity towards the end. So before that, why carbon literacy matters? Why does a seminar like this are crucial for all of you? Because we are tackling with one of the most important or defining challenge of our lifetime. It's no longer a climate change issue, ladies and gentlemen. It's a climate crisis. So from melting glaciers to all the way to food insecurity, and also now we are looking at extreme weather events, all these are directly affecting each and every one of us. We might be sitting very comfortably in this lecture hall, very nice lecture hall, but if we go outside, immediately we can feel the heat and the humidity pressing on us, the heat stress that we have. So that's my research area, actually. So, so this is happening outside of Malaysia. So, but what is Malaysia doing? So Malaysia, in accordance to the Paris Agreement, so Malaysia also have determined that they wanted to contribute towards being a solution of this climate crisis. And in that end, they have already volunteered to reduce 45% of the greenhouse gas emission, taking 2005 as baseline. So that also shows that whatever Malaysia's ambition is, it should also be trickled down to the very smaller units like us as a university. And even if you want to go even deeper or more granular into each and every one of you, what can you as an individual contribute towards this solution? So in this end, climate literacy plays a very important, because it starts with climate literacy. How can you act if you don't know something that is happening outside? So this is why climate literacy is very, very important. So when we talk about sustainability, we cannot ignore the balance in between people's well-being, the planet's environmental sustainability, and also businesses' viability. Because you cannot prioritize one and neglect the others. For example, I remembered I have this very silly thought previously. If the businesses are actually damaging the environment and also causing a lot of environmental health which impacts the people, let's stop the business. That's a very silly thought, because let me share a fact with you. So in what kind of scenario that we consider stopping the business is essential. So I'll give you a very good example, and we have lived through it. Remember what happens in 2019, 2020, COVID hits. All the businesses shut down, right? So I would say that is an extreme measure of how we stop businesses damaging the environment. And of course, through news and such, you can see that some dolphins are swimming back to the rivers. Some animals or insects that you have not seen them for 10 or 20 years, they are starting to emerging again. So that is a sign to say that the environment is healing. But if you look at statistics at how much of greenhouse gas emission was reduced during that time, take a wild guess, how much globally? How much have we reduced in that 2 to 3 years of total shutdown of businesses? How much have we reduced? Sorry? 40%, not even 20%. It's about 15, 16 or 17 if I remember correctly. So with that huge amount of stop in all the businesses, and yet we only reduce 16 to 17% of global greenhouse gas emission, it means that stopping business is not the way forward. We have to look at how we need to balance the businesses and ensure the business are green enough to ensure they support the social community well-being, and at the same time, we also take care of the environmental sustainability. So this is very important. So for us to push forward this 3P, there is this framework, which was introduced by United Nations in 2015. So I believe all of you know what is this. So this is the UN SDG. So all these sustainable development goals means that there is a goal at the end of the day. And this is a very good goal, I would say, because it covers a very holistic part of development. It's not just about the environmental development, which is covered mostly by the lower row. We also talk about human development. We also talk about businesses. For example, SDG 12, about responsible consumption and also production, how businesses can be more green in their nature. So this is a very holistic goal, but are we progressing towards SDG? So sometime last week, the United Nations released the latest SDG report. So basically, it's like a report card for countries. And Malaysia is also part of it. Malaysia is somewhere in 84 out of the 116. So basically, we are like, okay lah, passing mark, 50%. But, you know, there is a deadline for this UN SDG, it's 2030, and it's 2025. 5 years down the road, can we really achieve what we have envisioned or set forward? What else need to be put into place? So that's why, coming back, climate literacy is very important. And a university like us, it's much more important. It's not because of research and innovation that we do as researchers that transform the lives outside, but more importantly, you, the future generations. When you go outside, you are the change maker. So hopefully, you know, by today you'll be able to carry a little bit more, and hopefully whatever fields that you are in later on, you can also carry this sort of ideology about how to do better for the planet. So these are just some excerpts to show you what the Malaysia has committed. This is also low battery. I'll use this then. I think, you know, it's a sign to ask me not to walk around. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'll continue to walk around. So Malaysia have committed 45% of GHG reduction by 2030. We can see the progress is not that convincing, and it's not shocking because there are so much of complexity. We are living in a 3C world. So what 3C, you might ask? We are living in a chaotic, complex, and complicated world. So you like it or not, all the problems that we are tackling today are very complicated in itself. And one solution might not be able to tackle it entirely. I'll give you an example. We are living in a KL, PJ kind of environment. Whenever it rains, we sort of face flash floods, right? But do you know that what is causing the flash floods is not actually our drainage system failing? I mean, yes, it's failing in a way, but it's not entirely because of the drainage problem. It's because of the waste, the solid waste that actually clog up the drain that causes the flash flood. And where does this waste come from? It's from human. You don't tell me monkey will go and buy ice cream and then they just throw the plastic bag, the plastic anywhere. So it reflects on how humans behave at the end of the day and what kind of consequences is the environment telling us. Flash flood is one example. Rising sea level is another. The changing climate, the extreme weather is also another indicator to show us that something is wrong. And it's also reflected in what humans have done in the past that contribute towards the current situation that we are in. So if you also, the National Energy Transition Roadmap is also being put forward and it's already in running. So if you're interested to look more into that, you can actually head over to download this file. So it's already made available online. So the reason why this is a key topic is because a huge portion of the emission is actually coming from the energy sector. So there is a need for the national to translate or transform into a greener renewable energy. So in the recent Asian meeting, there's also a very huge discussion on how we can create integrated renewable energy grid in the whole Southeast Asia. Because I know I'm given 1 hour, but I'll try to wrap up everything within 1 hour. So there's so much that is actually happening outside. And I think it's very important for all of you to know. For example, the cost for solar energy generation fluctuates, not only just across different countries, but within Malaysia itself. Because why? Solar energy is depending on a lot of environmental factors which you cannot control. So yes, Malaysia is in a very tropical climate. We are experiencing solar on a daily basis, 365 days. Yes, there are rain, but you still see sunshine. Once, at least in a day. So why are we not still progressing very well in solar? The reason is because people don't know that the cloud cover in this part of the world is very high. And because of that cloud cover, it significantly reduces the efficiency of the solar panels. So yes, solar, we know it's good, but it's not giving that sort of promising replacement towards the energy source that we have. So now we have to look into other source of energy like hydrogen, biofuel, and etc. So, but that's the key point here, because it's not as simple as you think, right? That's what I want to stop at this. Okay, so I'll just share some science behind the urgency. Why do we need to be sort of panic in this current situation? International reports such as the one released by IPCC, which is International Panel on Climate Change, say that by 2030, we need to halve emissions so that we can cap the temperature, the global average temperature at 1.5 degrees Celsius. Not to scare all of you, we have passed at 1.5 last year. Expected? Expected? Are you doing anything to change the situation? Okay, tepuk dada tanya selera. So although it's not a permanent change, and because the way that they define 1.5 degrees Celsius is also not just one occurrence. Because currently, yes, short-term changes, we have blew past at 1.5 degrees Celsius, but it's not fixed yet on an average. So it could be outlier. Hopefully, it would be an outlier. But looking at how we are developing nowadays, we really need to reflect on this, right? So from statistics, it's also showing that the urbanization areas like KL, cities are basically, regardless of the size of the cities, you can call it a metropolitan, you can call it cities, mega cities. So, but basically, urbanization means that you are actually converting a huge land of vegetated lands previously into impervious lands, building skyscrapers and such, highways, and you have a lot of people living in it, contributing towards the emission. 70% of emissions coming from urbanization areas. And that also reflects us again, because we are sandwiched in between KL and PJ, which is two of the most dense urbanized area in Malaysia. So whatever the urban areas are facing in terms of their urban issues, we also face it inside campus. For example, there is a closing of water, there's a water rationing issue outside somewhere in Selangor. Is UM affected? Yes. It's not, although the source doesn't come from UM, but because we are living in one watershed, so whatever happens outside also influences us. So, and whatever emission that we have from Universiti Malaya is also contributing towards the urban area outside. So, but rather saying that we are a part of the source of emission, we are also the solution towards this emission. So then I will show you why and where we are currently. So whenever I talk about carbon footprint, I like to show this image here. So whenever you go to the beach, when you walk, every step you take, you will leave behind a footprint. So the ideology here is exactly the same with carbon. For everything that you do in your daily life, every choice you make, do I want to walk to class today, or do I want to take a private vehicle? Do I want to carpool? Each decision would leave behind a certain level of emissions. If you walk, basically there's no emission, because you don't use any motorized vehicles, you don't use the consumption of fuels and such. Do I eat a plate of nasi goreng daging compared to having a bowl of salad? And do I eat local fruits like papaya? Or I want to eat something like Fuji apple or strawberries coming from the other part of the world. Each decision does contribute towards emission, whether you realize it or not, right? So all decisions would eventually make a difference, a huge difference in fact. So, so this is carbon footprint. So in a more definitive way, so this, I believe you have seen this before. So we talk about how we want to maintain balance. So this is a carbon cycle. So basically, we know a little bit of science here. So we know that matters exist in three forms: gaseous, aqueous, or in their physical forms, right? So throughout the environment, they would cycle, they would transform from one type to another, and eventually they would be deposited somewhere. So it depends on where is it and in what kind of form. So in this sense, there is a lot of, so the current situation that we are in, we are facing global warming is because we have a lot of greenhouse gases. And greenhouse gases predominantly, which is carbon dioxide, are actually situated in the atmospheric level, causing a blanket over the Earth's surface, because there is a heat balance on the Earth's surface. Whenever there is a heat coming in, there is a reflection out. But how can it go out if, let's say, you cover it with a blanket? And this is the invincible blanket that we're looking at, which is primarily made of carbon dioxide, but you also have other greenhouse gases such as methane, nitrous oxides, and so on and so forth. So these chemicals, or I would say components in the air, atmosphere, is actually preventing the heat to be released outside of the atmosphere, so causing a further heating of the Earth's surfaces. So carbon footprint, in simple, is actually total greenhouse gas emission from activities, daily activities that we have. So it contributes towards what is actually happening outside, right? So it's measured in CO2 equivalent. We do not need to dive too deep into that for now. But basically what you need to know is that it's actually a tool to measure our impact, humans' impact, right? The businesses, the individual impacts, and how does it impact the environment. So besides being a tool to measure, it's also a tool for change, because how can you make a change if you don't know where you are? So in sciences or in research, we always talk about benchline, so benchmark, so where you are currently, right? Yes, we want to know that we are heading somewhere. We want to head to net zero by 2050, sorry. But where we are currently, how do we get there? So that's where we are currently doing, what we are currently doing through UM, and I will share with you more later on. So maybe very quickly, I will also dive a little deeper to share with you what are the sources of carbon footprint. So when we talk about sources, immediately there's one very easy way for you to distinguish. So either it's direct or indirect. Okay, then we will dive deeper. So if you dive deeper, let's talk about direct emission first. So direct emissions, or also known as Scope 1 emissions, are those that are directly released as part of the activities conducted within the faculty itself or within the organization or institution itself. So for example, if let's say Universiti Malaya have buses, right, owns the buses. So the emissions that are coming from the buses to transport all of you from your residential college to your classes and back and forth, all those kind of emissions are all categorized under Scope 1 emission, right? Those are the direct emissions. And for example, like faculties like in engineering or in faculty of science or even in Dr. Ija's lab, you have labs, right? You have a lot of experiments going. If let's say, for example, in the chemical engineering where I know there's a lot of combustion happening, a lot of burning. So that sort of burning would also create emissions, and those emissions are categorized as Scope 1 emission. So that's a context within Universiti Malaya itself. So if you want to think about an example closer to you, perhaps you can imagine a char kway teow store, right? Fried kway teow. So the direct emission is for every plate of kway teow that you fry, there is X amount of emission. You can immediately see the smoke going out from your fume hood. So that's the direct emission because it's directly attributed to your business in that sense. So Scope 1 is very easy, right? It's directly linked to whatever you are doing. Then we go into indirect emission. So indirect emission, it's further defined into two more fields. So we have Scope 2 emission and Scope 3 emission. Let's talk about Scope 2 first. Scope 2 is that sort of emission that happens indirectly, but it happens directly, but not that indirectly. So I'll give you an example. The reason is, see all the lights, the air conditioning, the power that, that charge the battery of this mic. It comes from electricity, right? So we collectively are using electricity in this hall, but the emission is not happening inside because we don't have, the electricity that is powering all this is not coming from it's coming from a power plant, maybe from somewhere near Port Klang, for example. So emission is happening there, but the one that is benefiting from that emission is here. So this is Scope 2 emission. Electricity use, so we are benefiting from the electricity, but the emission is happening elsewhere, right? So this is Scope 2. Scope 3, very complicated. And the reason why I tell you this is because I'll give you the easiest example that I can think of. So for example, I stay in Cheras. I drive to I also have another colleague from Seremban. And they might take KTM, or they might also drive to So that's two individual. And the type of vehicles that we take, or the mode of transport that each of us choose to come to Universiti Malaya have X amount of emission, and it's different, right? I'm taking two examples, one driving from Cheras, the other one driving from Seremban. It's exponentially different. But we have not only just two people in right? We have students, we have staffs, we have academics, and we also have trespassers. We have patients in PPUM. So how do we capture all this Scope 3 emission? Very, very complicated, right? But when we have this sort of complicated kind of issue, this is also the part where we can also find innovations. So this is also where, as students or as researchers, we can actually find some ways to better track how we can actually reduce the emissions from this. So I also like to introduce Prof. Ina. So Prof. Ina also, she's also working in PPUM. So we are also working on how we can green the healthcare sector, because healthcare sector is also one of the primary, there's a lot of emission associated to the healthcare sector. How can we create a more climate-friendly healthcare sector? So we are looking at procedures, how can we improve the procedures, avoiding wastage, and that would eventually help to reduce the emissions coming from the healthcare sector. Okay, so that's Scope 1, 2, and 3. So to put it, summarize in one diagram, so you have Scope 1, those that are directly emitted from the organization or institution. So when I say organization or institution, it could be one university. So in Universiti Malaya, how many buildings do you think we have? Guesses? 100? 200? 50? Wait. Sorry? 50. Yeah, individual buildings. Very close, but less 10. We have 500 buildings in Universiti Malaya. 500. So, good luck to the team that is doing the direct emission calculation. Scope 2 is easy because Scope 2 is electricity, and basically we have smart metering running around. So basically we can track from our electricity bill. But Scope 1 is very difficult because God knows what is happening in building 1, building 2, 3, all the way to building 500. During working hours, what about after working hours? Some places would have refrigerators, like labs, because you need to keep specimen. So electricity goes. And then sometimes you have lab you have 14 weeks. Some you have combustion, some you don't have combustion. Just to show you how complicated it is, right? So that is Scope 1. Scope 2 is electricity, very, very straightforward. And Scope 3, currently what we are trying to do from our end is that we want to capture at least staff travel. And also if we are able to also collect some business travel, because traveling by airplane, it emits a lot of carbon emission. So we are also trying to capture that as part of the Scope 3 emission, right? So hopefully by showing you this, and in a very short 5 to 10 minutes, I'm able to show or enlighten you what is carbon footprint and how we can actually classify the carbon footprint according to direct, indirect, and also Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Okay, so coming back to where we are currently, very beautiful campus we have in UM. So if you have not taken a look at how UM looks like from the top aerial view, this is UM. So if you look at, it's exactly at the heart of KL. And when I say heart, Prof. Ina maybe can correct me, it does look like a heart shape, right? With aorta and all those, yeah. So it's very green, but like I said, we are also facing urban pressures or urban stresses that is happening in Kuala Lumpur and also Petaling Jaya. So instead of being like one of the source of emission, how can we, as a university campus, contribute towards improving whatever that is happening in Kuala Lumpur and also PJ? So we are sitting on a land of 922 acre. Our population is about 30 to 40,000 people, all included. So we are indirectly a sort of like a township in between KL and PJ. So this is also to show you, since we have done some data collection since 2016. So thanks to Afan, he's one of the main leader of this data collection. So to reflect our carbon emissions since 2016. So you can see that we are producing quite a lot actually. And if you want to read more about all this report, you can head over to sustainability@um.edu.my, right? We have all this report there. But to show you that, in 2023, where's the pointer? Yeah. If you can see, our emission is very low. And I will skip forward to 2024. So in 2024, the total Scope 1 and Scope 2 emission is about more than 57,000 tons CO2 equivalent. So this is, so in 2023, we have about 4,700 tons CO2 equivalent. You did not read it wrong. From 4,000 something become 57,000 something. And the reason is we did not subscribe for green energy tariff. So maybe very quickly, do you know what is green energy tariff? Have any of you heard of green energy tariff? Afan cannot answer. No? Yes? Okay. So basically, the government, mainly the energy supplier, TNB in Malaysia, Tenaga Nasional Berhad, have come up with a scheme to give you, or introduce you, when you want to use electricity, do you want to use from the renewable energy, or you want to use conventional? So conventional is actually the burning of fossil fuels, the charcoal, and so on and so forth. So then, of course, if you want to use renewable energy, the price comes slightly higher. So at TNB side, what they do is that the idea is very simple. So you go, like for example, if you go to Mama, the Mama will ask you, do you want to eat local rice or you want to eat basmati Japanese rice? the concept is exactly the same. So if you want to use renewable energy, so you can also assume that the amount of emissions coming from that use of electricity is equal to 0, because it's coming from a renewable energy, right? So when we subscribe to that sort of green energy tariff, all the electricity usage that we have in Universiti Malaya equals, or it's assumed to be 0 emission, because it's coming from a renewable energy. But in 2024, we did not continue to subscribe, and that's also the reason why the emissions suddenly skyrocketed to about, from 4,000 something to 57,000 tons per CO2 equivalent. So that also shows, because in Universiti Malaya, the 3 main sources of emission comes from mobility, meaning transport, electricity usage, and also procurement, meaning that all the purchases that we do within Universiti Malaya. So if you are interested to read more about the report, it's available in the UMSDC's webpage. So in 2025, we are trying to also record in Scope 3, because from 2016 to 2024, we have not reported about Scope 3. So hopefully this year we can have a better understanding of where we are currently in Scope 3. So I think at the effort of Universiti Malaya pushing towards carbon neutral or net zero, at the heart, which is playing a very huge role in this, is actually Universiti Malaya Sustainable Development Center, or UMSDC in short. So the vision here is that how we can transform into a model city campus. So meaning that how we can show ourselves, like I said, we are sort of like a small township within KL and PJ. So how can we show that, what is the good practices within Universiti Malaya, and how can these good practices be replicated to other parts of the KL or PJ, and that would actually help to improve the emission standards. So what we are doing in UMSDC is that, so these are based on the 3 missions that we have. So we are doing translational research, meaning that whatever kind of research that we are doing currently helps to inform policy. And this is reflected in the policy that we have within UM itself. We have UM sustainability policy. We have Eco Campus Blueprint. We also have a blueprint on smart transformation, how we envision UM would look like in 2050, for example. So later I'll also go very briefly with you what kind of documents that we have helped to shape. So for example, another policy is the single-use plastic policy. So so we are the ones behind the non-single-use plastic. So you hate it or not, it's actually helping enforcing the phasing out of single-use plastic in Universiti Malaya. Sorry. So this is a closer look at how we are using a whole campus approach, because like I said, no one should be left behind. So I'm taking this quote from UNSDG. So no one should be left behind when it comes to implementing sustainability efforts and also how to reduce greenhouse gas emission. So it's not just about the research and innovation that we do to help improve the current situation, but it's also to enculture, meaning that how can we touch each and every one of you's your heart to have that sort of mentality or behavioral shift into doing something better for the day. And it does not stop there, because what we want to do is that we want to create that sort of culture where you bring it out, it's sort of like embedded in your DNA, right? You carry that sort of sustainability DNA within you. So how do we as an internal community affect one another, encourage one another, work together for a better university? At the same time, when you move out of this Universiti Malaya, you are going to graduate. And who knows that if I'm going to stay in UM all the way towards my 60s, maybe midway through I find a greater purpose that I want to go and serve somewhere else. I don't know, right? But the idea here is that wherever you go after this, you carry that with you, that sustainability mindset, the appreciation of small efforts, but collectively it's very huge, right? I'll touch a little bit more about that. And recently we did very, very well. I think it's a huge jump in terms of our ranking, because all these rankings are also partially attributed to the sustainability efforts that we have in Universiti Malaya. So you can take a look like how we have jumped from 58, from 64 to 50, 64 to 25 globally. So we are one of the most sustainable campus in the world. So be proud of that, and be part of that, right? Be proud of that and be part of that. So the way that living labs are important in UMSDC is because we think that these are small test bits within Universiti Malaya. Because Universiti Malaya, if you want to say it's a huge community, it's not really a very huge community, but we are facing the same problem that KL or PJ is facing. So what we do through these living labs is that we fund students, we also fund researchers to look into what are the current urbanization problems that are faced outside. How can we come up solutions from inside? And then we try to see if it is successful, and if it is, how can we upscale it so that it could be uptake by the local authorities like DBKL, MPAJ, and so on and so forth. So I think Dr. Ijaz also have a lot of research on how we can tackle climate change. So maybe later he will share with us. But basically that's the idea here. How can we do action-oriented research? Meaning that translational research where the output from this research immediately informs policy making. And also, when there is policy, there is enforcement, and then that's where changes starts to happen. Because it doesn't happen overnight. For something to happen, it takes a lot of negotiations. So, small steps, but very needed steps. So perhaps very quickly, I would just like to also mention that, we have very successful living labs. Some started since even 2010. Where are you when it's 2010? Where am I when I'm 2010? I'm maybe in my primary school. Yeah. But, they've been talking about how we can properly manage the waste that is generated from the Universiti Malaya. So not only about solid waste, it's about the food waste that you have generated. Malaysians, we are so damn good in actually creating food waste. And it's guilty in a sense that, especially during festive, so much of food wastage. And other parts of the world, they are even starving. So it's really a shame on Malaysians how we are generating food waste. So we have come up with zero waste campaign and a lot of solutions. For example, they have also done circular economy on how to treat food waste, transforming the food waste into compost. So those are also uptake by neighborhoods, communities, and that sort of created an alternative income for those B40 groups as well. So that's where the beauty of Living Lab is, because you started off to treat the solid waste, but eventually you actually help to improve the lives of those that are outside, right? So you also have a water warriors. I would like to mention this, Afan, which is the founder. Couple years ago, about 10 years ago, Tasik Varsity is not like what it looks like now. Nobody would even dare to jump or go close to it. It's full of what's that? What's that thing? Atas tu? Algae, yes. It's full of algae. And God knows what is inside there. Even you might even find some corpse inside. God knows what is inside. And it's because of efforts like what Afan did. Now you have the Tasik Varsity. You can even kayak. And last year, we have partnered with Department of Fisheries to release very exotic and sensitive fish to breed in our Tasik Varsity. So that says a lot about how clean it is now to support these very sensitive fishes, to be a breeding ground for all these fishes. And it starts from, what Afan did. So these are very good examples to show you that how small efforts, but you really need it to start, and then you can see that. And it doesn't happen in 1 or 2 years. Like Tasik Varsity, it took 10 years. Rimba Ilmu, which is our forest of knowledge, took 20 plus years to become what it is now. So, sometimes it's difficult to communicate because when we talk to businesses, they talk about ROI within 1 year and such. It's difficult, but you need to start talking. You need to start the effort. Otherwise, it will never happen. So like what Afan did from Waterways, now it's also expanded to help DBKL yang Pleko State of Selangor, yeah. State of Selangor. He's also helping State of Selangor to tackle some of the invasive fishes that we have in the stream. So the invasive species of fish are actually threatening the biodiversity of the river itself. So, this sort of small effort started from university, but it grows into helping State of Selangor now. So God knows where you might be or what kind of efforts that would multiply from your small effort today. So the Rimba project is an initiative to take a good care of our biodiversity. If you have any of you have not visited Rimba Ilmu, seriously. So Rimba Ilmu is actually at the back part of our Universiti Malaya. So if you look at the aerial image just now, so it's actually the very green part. So there's a very small part which you can actually visit. It's a botany garden. So, you know, in that very small place, it holds up to 1,600 species. And you know how huge is 1,600 species? In certain countries, maybe at most they have like 50 to 100 species. And in this very small place, you have 1,600. And some species you can only find it here, not even in other parts of Malaysia, nor even the world. So this is how unique it is and how much it is a treasure to all of us, right? So if you have not visited this place, I recommend you to, before you leave UM, to go there, right? If you're fortunate, perhaps I'll do a treasure hunt activity again this year. So what we did previously was I get a lot of students, like 200 to 300 students, running wild inside Rimba Ilmu to learn about the species that we have. What are the common names? And interesting fact, you know, the logo that we have in Universiti Malaya, that pokok, it's also in Rimba Ilmu itself. So, you know, there's a lot of things that you can learn. It's not just about trees, it's also about the medicinal parts, it's also about the animals or the biodiversity, the ecosystem itself. It's very interesting, right? If you have the chance, please do go and visit. So since 2015, we have funded, Universiti Malaya have funded about 5.7 million actually for 141 projects. So zero waste, water warriors, Rimba project, those are the more successful ones. We also have the eco malls. So eco malls have grown out of UM, I would say, because they are working very closely with the JAKIM. So to also transform all the malls that we have in Malaysia into a more greener one. So we talk about how they integrate rainwater harvesting system, solar, and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, small efforts, but, you know, it's growing out of UM. So this is what we want at the end of the day. We have also partnered with Caring, and very soon we are also going to partner with Watsons. So to tackle safe disposal of unused medicine. Because unused medicine, when you don't use it anymore, you either throw it down the drain or you just throw it in your trash bin and then it eventually would leak out, creating a lot of antimicrobial bacteria, meaning that bacteria are much more difficult to kill nowadays. So in the end, it's going to harm humans down the road, right? What goes in circle comes in circle, right? I mean, that's what they say. So these are some of the blueprints, or I would say policies, that came out of what we have done over the years. So we have Eco Campus Blueprint, Sustainability Policy, and very recently we have launched the first draft of Universiti Malaya Net Zero Blueprint. So this is also something that I'm working very closely on currently. So how we can actually help transform UM into a carbon neutral campus by 2030. So if you are interested to go through, there are a few hundred pages long, sorry, it's a little bit lengthy, but if you're interested to read through, you can go and download it from our website, right? So this is another very important reference document, which is the UM Master Plan 2050. So a couple of years ago, we have already envisioned what UM would look like in 2050. So I'm also very happy to share that the MRT3 project is, boleh share kan? Boleh. The MRT3 project is going to be on the way. Maybe some of you would, I think I would have the chance to experience MRT3 coming into UM. Some of you, maybe not, maybe yes, but if you are still around Malaysia, then I see a lot of foreign international students here. So if you're in Malaysia, you know, try MRT3 coming into UM. It will bring a very different vibe compared to what you have now. So I think I can also share that, you know, initial discussion that the MRT3 is going to entirely change what UM campus look like now. It's going to be very different because we are talking about demolishing buildings as well as part of the reshaping of the smart campus. So the reason is because previously when we built, I mean when Universiti Malaya was built, we did not anticipate the growth in population. And if you look at the residential college that we have now, they are all quite low rise. But we have huge community within you. How do we cater to that? So those residential college that are not high rise would eventually be demolished, replaced with high rise residential, so that we can cater more population within Universiti Malaya. So that is also good in one way, because when we talk about greenhouse gas emission, one major source is actually coming from mobility. So when you have everything within this integrated system where it's just 5 minutes away from where you stay to where you go to class, another 5 minutes from where you go to class to where you eat, where you have all your other basic necessities, it's just walking distance away. So you don't even need motorized vehicle anymore. So a part of this transformation plan is also to come up with a multi-layer car park. I think I've exposed too much, but I'll stop there. But be very excited about what is going to happen in Universiti Malaya in the next couple of years, because it's going to be a very huge change. And all these change are good because it's actually helping us to become a more integrated, sustainable campus. Are you still with me? Yes? No? Hey! Hi! Good friend. Okay, so I also like to just very quickly introduce this concept. So when we talk about carbon neutrality, it's actually to have a balance between emitting and also absorbing carbon. So we are only focusing on carbon. So like I said, for every activities or actions that we have, we will generate emissions, right? So how do we balance that? Meaning that, okay, maybe for every 1,000 activities that we have collectively, we plant one tree, and that tree can actually offset all our carbon. So that's carbon neutral. So net zero goes one step further, because like I said, when we consider greenhouse gas, it's not just about carbon. We also have methane, we have other nitrous oxides and such and such. So net zero is actually to look at how can we totally zero out all these emissions. And just net zero is what we are aiming for at the end of the day. The reason why is because the adaptive capability of each and everyone is different, right? You ask a very rich person, don't eat that much of red meat, eat salad instead. Or they say, okay, I'll get organic salad, right? How much is a bowl of organic salad? Sometimes they can go to 20 or 30 ringgit. Is everyone able to afford that 20 or 30 ringgit? No. So how do we ensure that the transition towards net zero in Universiti Malaya and beyond Universiti Malaya can be just? Means that it's fair, considering how each and everyone is different in terms of your adaptive capability. How can we ensure that the access to net zero efforts can be made equally shared among all of us, right? So that's just net zero. So the reason why we are doing net zero campus is not just about rankings. So basically, it's also something that the international is going after. So you can see like the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, so or in short UNSDSN, have introduced net zero on campus. Basically, this guideline is provided to all the universities in the world. Like how can these campuses become much more greener? And our just net zero blueprint is also based on that blueprint. We have localized that blueprint into Universiti Malaya's context. So everyone is racing to zero nowadays. You can also see in this excerpt here. So and then at a national level, we have the National Energy Transition Roadmap. And in Kuala Lumpur, you have Kuala Lumpur Climate Action Plan 2050. You also have the Low Carbon Cities Framework. So you have all these ambitions around us. So it's only right that Universiti Malaya, as the top premier university in Malaysia, also take responsibility and an active role in helping to achieve all this at the end of the day, right? How it's not just the research and innovation that we do, like I said, it's about enculturation, creating that sort of movement to change our nearby surrounding. So perhaps I will also very quickly bring you through the net zero that we have. So the net zero strategy, you can actually download this from our website. So, but to put it short, we have 6 sectors. So these are the 6 sectors that are going to transform or help us accelerate our efforts towards carbon neutrality. So we have 6 sectors, from energy, mobility, facilities, waste minimization, recycling value chain, beyond campus operation, and 56 action plans, right? So I will just very quickly bring you through. So like for example, in energy, we aim to improve the energy efficiency management We also want to have more renewable energy mix in our empowering our campuses. So you can see that there are action plans and also the indicators that are packed together with all these action plans. So how do we know that they are successful at the end of the day? So we look back at the indicators, right? We have a tracking system. So for mobility, how can we modernize and streamline campus transport with efficiency, safety, and sustainability? So for example, the buses that we have currently in UM are now all electrified. All lah. Semua ke? Belum. Okay, partially are electrified. We are also, a couple of weeks ago, we are also talking to some vendors outside to bring in beam, because it's not that easy to bring in beam in University campus. You might be wondering why. Because the road is also a matter of state. It's also have a jurisdiction under JPJ and so on and so forth. So, a lot of clearance need to be made before we can bring in that sort of convenience for everyone. So we are also in talk of bringing in electric tram to replace the internal visits within campus. So those are all happening very soon. Right. So facilities-wise, we are trying to digitize all the assets that we have currently so that we can have a better tracking. Like for example, if there are any leakage or any out power or anything like that, we'll be able to immediately tackle this sort of wastage issue. We're also looking into replacing energy-intensive equipment at the end. So all these are actually currently on the way. We are also looking into retrofitting campus buildings, and even we are currently in the mid of actually getting some of our buildings within Universiti Malaya to be green building certified. So that's also a testament in how Universiti Malaya is advancing our sustainability efforts by getting our buildings being recognized as green, and hopefully that could also help to inspire other buildings to follow the same footprint, same path. Waste minimization, I don't think I need to elaborate more because we have been doing very well in terms of zero waste since the very beginning. So it's just a continuation of that. So for value chain, we are also looking at the opportunity of offsetting the carbon, because there is only a certain level of amount of carbons that we can minimize. So what happens to the carbon that we cannot reduce? So we need to look into other measures like how can we offset. So I'm not sure how many of you constantly buy or order food through Grab. Any of you? Yes? No? Okay. So if you, after you have done all your ordering, if you go through the before you do your payment, there's one part where you can actually tick. Do you want to offset the carbon from your meal? Because if we look back at how emissions are calculated, from where the food is cooked, from where the food is delivered to your place, all those are emissions. So how do you ensure that those emissions are offsetted? So in that case, what Grab do is that they actually have partnered with some of the carbon offset provider. So that's a topic for another day. But to put it simple, basically imagine that you have a group of people that they only do tree planting. Yeah. So you have a lot of excess of tree because trees are good emission absorber. So when they are able to absorb that much, they will say, okay, I have excess of capabilities to reduce the carbon generated from other places. So that's how Grab partnered with this sort of tree planters to say that for all the Grab deliveries that were conducted and offsetted that sort of payment, let's say 50 cents, that 50 cents will actually go to the planters so that they can continue their effort in planting more trees so that they can absorb more carbon to offset the carbon that you have generated from your Grab purchase. So that's a very simple illustration to show you how carbon offset works. But if we are looking at a huge, bigger amount of carbon, then we need to look into other methods of carbon offsetting measures. So beyond campus operation refers to how we can act as an amplifier of change. So like I said, whatever we have in Universiti Malaya doesn't stop at the gate of Universiti Malaya. It goes beyond. So those that are attending here, hopefully you will be the face of change maker. Hopefully you are the one that is going to be the one replacing me in the front, telling the same story to other people, right? So that's where we are hoping for. Okay, so what is a good plan if we don't have a timeline, right? So just to make ourselves more stressful, difficult. So all the action plans that we have are also, we have a timeline for it. What are the immediate wins and what are the efforts that need to be sold tomorrow, but maybe we won't get that benefit that quickly in the next year. So we will need to wait a couple of years. But nevertheless, we have identified what needs to be prioritized that could bring in immediate effort, because we are heading to 2030. We are only 5 years, not even 5 years anymore. It's mid of 2025. We have less than 4 years. So how can we accelerate our efforts, right? So this is very important. Okay, so what you can do. So I hope by now you are able to actually also realize that individuals have a lot of power. And a lot of people, especially the students that I have in my class, they say, yeah, if I walk today instead of driving, will it really make a difference? One person, yes. But if the whole campus, it will bring a huge change, you know. And, you know, a lot of youth, me included, I'm also youth, don't understand the power that we have in hand. Because everything in the world works on a supply-demand basis. If all of us demand for a leader that put sustainability at the forefront of their agenda, if we have a leader that does not say climate change is a myth, it's a propaganda, who doesn't just step into place, into his position, and he signed out of the Paris Agreement, then we're moving in the correct direction. Otherwise, you know, we really need to do something, right? So you, and who actually put that person in place? It's all of us, right? We have the power to decide who we want to put at the top. We also have the power to decide what kind of companies stay in the market. So if, let's say, nowadays you want to get one bowl of salad, it's 20 to 30 ringgit because it's organic, it's fresh, it's very close to the town, right? So what if, let's say, we have more suppliers? Would it bring the price down? Definitely. But how do we get more suppliers on board? You first have to demand. You have to demand. We demand for more access towards organic food, cheap organic food. How can we get that? And then, you know, when people start to see the business opportunity, eventually, you know, we will get a very fresh organic salad, maybe less than 10 ringgit. It's possible. It's possible. So it starts from your decision. By realizing that what you can do, what power you have in your hand, we can really make a change in that sense, right? So don't forget about it. So of course you can join UMSDC initiative and activities. You can also join me. I have a lot of fun activities. So I'm also, besides being with UMSDC, I'm also championing planetary health. So how many of you have heard of planetary health? Planetary health. Tak kira, Prof. Ina. Tak pernah. Okay. So planetary health is rather new concept, but you know it originates in 2015 as well. So SDG started 2015, planetary health started 2015 also. Why SDG famous, planetary health tak famous sangat? So I don't know lah, don't need to debate on that. But the idea here is that the planetary health is important because it's a concept where we see the interconnection between humans and the planet as one. It's not two separate entities. We are living on a planet. So how long have we been living on planet? Maybe 2,000 years, plus minus. How long have the Earth been around? Millions of years. So do you think, hypothetically, if one day something wipe out human race, will the Earth still be there? It will. So do we depend on the Earth or the Earth depend on us? Something for us to reflect on. Because the way that we are living currently, it's that it's as if the Earth depends on us, not the other way around. Right? See, in terms of how we consume things. You know, some statistics also find that if we live like how we live today, we will need 2 Earths by 2050. Do we have 2 Earths? No, we don't have. But still, we are still living like there's only, you know, the Earth is all there for us to take. Okay, before I come to this,
It's very close. I know it's already up time. I just want to do a very final check with all of you. Are you aware of the 3 Rs? 3 Rs, you know, the recycling, reuse, reduce. How many of you have not heard of the 3R? Don't shock me. No, everyone heard of 3R. But do you know there's more than that 3R? In fact, there's 9 Rs. You not? So you know there's how many Rs there are? Okay, very good, but I don't have prize for you. So we have 9 Rs actually, right? We have 9 Rs. So a lot of people don't know the 9 Rs. We talk about how we want to reduce, how we want to recycle, how we want to reuse. But among the 9 Rs here, the strategies to reduce carbon footprint, I like the one which is second, which is to rethink. Because when you ask yourself, do I really need to get that thing? Because once you get that thing, you need to think about how you want to dispose of it. How do you want to reduce it? How you want to reuse it? You won't have that problem if at the very beginning you just say, okay, I don't need it. I don't need it, right? So it really saves a lot of problem. So that also, I think it's much more effective than the 3R that we are familiar with. And hopefully by introducing it to these 9 Rs, so you see there's an arrow next to the graph. So the more higher you go, it's more sustainable, it's more circular in that sense, right? So I think I will stop at that. Yeah, not that important. Yeah, okay. Because we run out of time, so maybe if later you have time, you can do this calculation of footprint. So there are a lot of carbon footprint, free carbon calculator online. So you can just head to anyone, do a quick self-assessment, like how much are you polluting? Or how much, not polluting, polluting is a bad word. How much are you contributing towards the emission scenario? Your individual footprint, right? So then you can reflect, how can you do better? If you're doing very good, how can you sustain or maintain it? All right, thank you very much. I will stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Fong, for that eye-opening presentation. We will now open the Q&A session. Participants may raise hands to ask questions. Do you have any questions?
Difficult questions for Dr. Hijaz only. I only take easy questions.
Right. Dr. Fong, there's few questions came in through the Mentimeter.
Okay.
There's 2. The first one is, unfortunately, we're not calculating that.
It's okay.
Right. What's the difference between consuming local grown food or fruits compared to those from overseas? I know the answer for that, but I would like to hear some from you as well.
So I'll pass the ball to you to answer, since you know the answer.
Right, okay. What I think is, it comes back to the emission that we produce, right? So when a fruit comes from overseas, that is fried, the emission that we produce for the planes and whatnot. So imagine you are eating an apple that comes from Japan, let's presume. So you got to incur for all those carbon emissions where you just eat in papaya that's locally grown in Malaysia. So in terms of carbon emission, that is less, right? I hope I gave you the correct answer.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly my answer.
Okay.
You copy my answer script, is it? Yeah, that's exactly the answer.
Right. Okay. There's the next one. Business air travel was flagged as a significant Scope 3 category for Universiti Malaya. What policy or incentive could the university introduce to cut these emissions without harming academic collaborations? I don't have the answer for that.
This is a very interesting question. You know, I got the same question last year because I'm also part of the Universiti Malaya Climate Change Advisory Panel for Natural Resource Environmental Sustainability Ministry. So every year on a yearly basis, Universiti Malaya will send delegates to attend COP. COP is Conference of Parties. So on a yearly basis, the United Nations would actually have these leaders from all around the world to come together to talk about climate ambitions, strategies and action plans and so on and so forth. So they say, okay, we're flying. Last year was actually at Baku, Azerbaijan. So how do we justify the carbon emission? To be honest, I don't have the answer. I mean, I sort of have the answer because, but we don't really know until we do a proper calculation. Because we have rimba ilmu, and sort of within Universiti Malaya we can offset our emissions to a certain level. But there's a lot of complexity in identifying what is our potential of offsetting our own carbon, and it also needs to be verified by third parties as well. So it's a very complicated down the road, but we can sort of use that as one measure. Another measure, that's always a debate about, is it essential for us to be there physically? I think it's difficult to put in a policy as well, because at the end of the day, it's very subjective whether we need to be there physically or not. So in the end of the day, it's really about how we can minimize as much as possible the offset through offsetting the emissions that are incurred. And whenever it's possible, I think we can opt for online, because it's equally effective. And I think most of the conferences, for example, nowadays are also available in hybrid mode. You don't have to be there physically. So I think that's a very quick answer to that question. Yeah. That's all. Yeah, that is all. Okay. Maybe.
Okay. Can you pass the mic? Okay.
Is it difficult?
Okay. I needed to see my notes. Okay. Last week in teacher seminars, innovation and entrepreneurship class, my group and I did a BMC project about school scooters. E-scooter.
E-scooter. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
e-scooter. Yeah, it can save Grab's taking costs and is a green way to cut carbon emissions. But when discussing with group members, we found it's hard to do in Malaysia, because we find no many bags or motor car bags days or crosswalks in Malaya's campus. So I think a big challenge for us to implement this project. So because I'm Chinese, I don't know about Malaya, so I'm so curious why don't many the backlays.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, thank you. The thing in Universiti Malaya is that it's not as straightforward as it seems.
Hi, Doctor.
Yeah.
I'll rephrase what she's my student.
Okay,
in
okay.
my class. So they presented about the scooter.
Okay.
So they wanted to implement this in Universiti Malaya.
Okay.
So I said, okay, you write a proposal. So she wrote a proposal. So will Living Labs support us for this?
Okay. Our big boss there smiling. Hey, you want to say anything? I think Afan is more in a appropriate position, because he's working directly with who is actually bringing in the e-scooter in UM.
And then she's curious, because in China they have this implementation in university.
Yeah.
Why in UM we don't have it? So she asked those questions to me. So I think you are
Okay.
the best person to answer this.
Yeah. I have visited China a lot of times. I went to Tsinghua University, I went to Peking University, and all those campuses, you either only can all electrified vehicles, and only certain parts you can bring in four-wheel vehicles. Other parts are just electric bikes or scooters. And the reason why they are able to do so is because the leaders say yes, there's no from the downside. That's one of the easiest way that I can put it in a way. And in Universiti Malaya, it's very difficult, because the roads inside Universiti Malaya is not entirely owned by Universiti Malaya. We also need to get permission from the Road Transport Ministry. We also need to get, once we even decided or we thought of closing, because Universiti Malaya is a very good shortcut, because we have KL Gate, we have PJ Gate, we have Damansara Gate. So it's a very good shortcut for outsiders. We even propose to close them so that the outsiders are not able to come in to control the jam. We were contacted by police we cannot shut our doors from outside. So, that immediately hopefully can also enlighten you that why is it very difficult for us to proceed with such plans. We know it's good, but unless it's a top-down instruction that we can do this, and it's not only just within Universiti Malaya can make that decision. Maybe the mayor of KL say, okay, Universiti Malaya, you should be car-free zone. Then it's possible. Yeah, but until it happens, it's always a challenge. Yeah. Yeah, Prof, you want to ask questions, man? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just now, I just wanted to also comment on the carbon offset. If you're attending conference, many conferences internationally, and I've attended a few recent ones, like Australia, who is really looking into sustainability. They actually offered at the end, after you register, they will say, would you like to carbon offset, blah, blah, blah. But there will be some payment to that, and sometimes the payment is pretty expensive if you have limited budget. So I was wondering if cannot calculate their own carbon offset by Rimba Ilmu, is it possible for us requesting that part from SDG or something like that,
To pay for that.
to help us pay if we are representing in this important meeting or important conference as presenter or speakers. I'm just wondering for all the rest of my students too, Thank you.
Good suggestion. We try to nantilah kita tengok possible ke tak to propose. Okay.
Is there any questions? Okay,
Question,
Dr. Hijaz.
Panel speaker cannot ask questions.
Hello. Okay, just a suggestion lah. Okay, I was privileged to study abroad I did my PhD in Australia and Okay, I have submit the same thesis. So in Australia, I just submit online. In have to print 4 copy to send to my reviewer and then do correction, print again. Waste of money. And I see the reviewer, they don't even touch the printed copy. Why are we still practicing this? I think even universities in other developing countries are going away with printing thesis. So I think I would like to, I talked with faculty, I don't care lah, but I don't know, maybe UMSDC can propose to the top management. I don't know lah, maybe because we are Badan Berkanun or it's a syarat, but I think we should do away with printing thesis for the Masters by Research and PhD by Research. Because I think it's a waste. I have the 3 copies of the one that I printed of my reviewer, they give back because the reviewer don't care. Because they're abroad and then it was during COVID. So what's the point I have to print? And then it's syarat, kalau if I don't send 4 copies, tak boleh. Nanti tak terima. And then it's not used. And then it's still in my office. I nak buang rasa, sayang kan? I'm gonna bring to rubbish bin. And it's pity lah kan? So there's some suggestion lah, like small things that we should cover before we go ambitious national level. Even at we still have a lot of paperwork. Kalau tak ada paperwork tak boleh, tidak diproses. So macam we can start small things first. Macam we can start, for example, before we can start simple thing like reducing electricity consumption, buying 5-star rated electricity appliances lah. So we should start small lah. Yeah, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Currently, we are trying to bring in another paper on paperless exam. So maybe we can start from there and then to thesis and also to other paper waste that we might generate. Okay. I think my time is up. It's your turn.
I think let's give it one more chance to when.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Nick Pishamya. I'm from Center for Transportation Research. I just want to add some more on the information of the e-scooter just now, because currently we are you can see in the road
the blue line.
The blue line. Have you noticed the blue line recently? Okay, that one is for e-scooter actually. E-scooter or non-mobility transport. We are permitted, we have permission from MOT, Ministry of Transport, in February for us to run on the e-mobility transport in campus. But only in campus, not outside the campus, because the permission is only around the campus. And we only focus, for the moment, we only focus the middle of the ring road of the campus. not to the towards the residential. Yes, not just this one is a starting point, because what we can see our campus, the road is not so. I mean, not on our side. Yes, we have to share. We have to share the road between the vehicle and non-motorized. That's why if you are using bicycle, e-scooter, please be careful. And this one, yes, because we know, because this one the safety is the most. Yes, that one is permitted. You can bring your own bicycle, e-scooter. You can mingle around the campus because we already have the permission from the Ministry of Transport. That one is run for only 2 years. Yes, and they will come and do some observation in the campus on this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the engaging session. Okay, we kindly to invite Dr. Chong to remain on the stage for the token of appreciation. Please welcome Dr. Samira to present to Dr. Chong. Thank you, Dr. Sarmila, and thank you, Dr. Fong Chong, for your valuable contribution. Okay.
Before we proceed to the next session, breakfast is served outside of the hall. Feel free to collect your meal and bring it in while enjoy listening to our next speaker. A small reminder to keep your phone in silent. And also those who arrived late, the attendance will be shared right before the lunch break, and there will be another attendance towards the end of the session later, right? So feel free to grab your breakfast and come back inside. We are about to begin with the next speaker now. Thank you.
All right, let's proceed with our second session titled Green Innovations on Campus. Showcasing one of the projects will be presented by Dr. Hijaz Kamal bin Hassan, Senior Lecturer in the Department of Geology, Faculty of Science. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hijaz to the stage. Oh yeah.
Yeah, guys, feel free to grab your breakfast. No problem.
The latest lah. Tengok dekat last slide tu ada video. Ada video. Ada embed. Tak ada, sekejap. Salah.
Oh, saya tak dapat upload ni jadi
senang sikit lah, tak payah apa.
Tapi ini sama je kan?
Sama, saya tak ubah. Saya tambah video. Tadi saya ada korek-korek sikit. Ada biasalah, ada macam minor issue. Ada besar sikit. So, dah ada ni. Tunggu sekejap lah bagi tu. Macam pointless kan. 5 minit lah. Diorang ni kelas Diorang macam wajib betul kan?
Mana?
Diorang kena datang ke?
Tak adalah, kita hantar je attendance.
Oh, okey lah. Baik Chinese student.
Banyak Chinese student. Tapi kita hantar untuk semua. Sebenarnya bukan untuk semua fakulti.
Susah sikit sebenarnya di tengah exam period. Saya dah share dalam jabatan saya. Semua tengah. Yang saya tak besar. Memang dia should come lah. Tapi macam mana?
Betul lah. Tak boleh. Doktor ambil sejam nanti boleh je. Nanti kita break for lunch lah. Lepas doktor dah habis nanti we break for lunch.
Okay, betul. Okay lah, saya dah commit dah datang hari. It's still good tadi. Banyak benda.
Tak apa.
so sorry with our timing lah, because first time
Tak apa.
doing this, so without their help, I think I wouldn't be.
Kita orang lagi lah tak pandai sangat buat benda ni. We're not very good with guys kat events so. I think SNT memang apa pandai buat ni lah kan, because you have to communicate kan.
Yeah.
Very good postgraduate students, so they
Saya rasa ni lah kot. Tak tinggi sikit. Saya prefer ni lah. Saya macam tak tahu lah, saya rasa macam clumsy pula pegang so, macam itu saya macam hayun lah. Kalau ada yang apa tu saya prefer tu.
Oh, yang apa tu?
Saya suka tangan saya suka gerak. Jadi saya tak suka pegang.
Boleh ya? Doktor test dulu slider tu, pointer tu boleh
Sekejap. Boleh. Okay.
Okey, siap. Yang apa?
Sebab saya kat ke tengah sikit.
Oh, nak bawa pergi tengah?
Ke tengah sikit lah.
Apa juga?
Okay. Sebab silau. Tak boleh
Cuba kita tanya kat dia. Boleh ke?
Dia kena ni ada projector high resolution.
Tanya kat dia sebab dia orang buat live juga kan. Nanti dia tak dapat capture.
Kita orang pun kalau lecture pun kan dia tutup depan.
Nak tutup tadi tapi tutup pula sebab dia orang buat live.
Ada pergi lecture
Tak ada.
Apa?
I student under Dr. Salmi.
Sudah master PhD.
Master.
Okey. Itulah yang macam yang kadang one hour dah kena take break semua ni. Kena Dr. Aini Syamsi. Because she's we studied at same university, the senior. She married my course.
Doktor ni IAS bukan?
Saya design. Geologi. Geologi ya.
Dengan sama dengan doktor.
Ada ke? Geologi tak ramai.
Geologi tak ramai.
Kenapa?
Kita ada buat event nanti dekat ni. Semalam kita ada meeting dengan Makerspace, Moxie. I represent Nas dengan Moxie.
Okay.
So semalam kita ada meeting dengan
Moxie. Itu Dr. Mio je.
Dr. Mio,
Dr. Badrul. Yang Basat. Dia cakap Basat.
Betul, Basat.
Projek saya lah.
Itulah nak pasal tanya pasal itulah yang CCUS tu kan.
Boleh.
Is it okay?
Okay, at least better.
Kan tadi geram saya.
I think kena tu. Lepas tu kena kadang-kadang saya buat saya tak lapar lagi kadang-kadang UM tu saya kadang macam lecture baru saya datang tengok kadang silau dan plan satu lama set tu lah. Itu banyak tu lepas saya buat projek ni kan banyak UITM contact saya macam diorang buat regulation so diorang apply grant Kementerian Ekonomi so dia macam pitch so kita you have to involve geologist so dia cakap yang dia tak ada geology program so dia contact UTM tak ada lepas tu diorang jumpa saya betul apa dia tak dia nak tahulah because dia lawyer semua tahu so kita lah apa benda ni
Philippines datang 19 August kita buat yang tu Open Day UM dengan Moxie.
Kita you tak contact saya sekarang kadang orang ni tak tahulah ni kan benda-benda IMB saya tak tahulah kadang even my head department dia macam lupa lah apa saya tak tahu siapa yang ungkit benda basak tu Dr. Mio tu Dr. Badrul
Dr. Mio
Dr. Badrul
Ayo sport interesting Mio tu lah
mana cakap saya
tak apalah ada for Moxie we were meeting so we were talking about one of
the Malaysia yang sikit tu je
so I will invite you for the session lah 13 bulan nanti doktor datang August so there will be companies from industry also we are inviting two
kena
companies
check schedule kalau meeting kalau ada meeting saya boleh delegate orang lain UM ni kadang kena datang so ada isu dia boleh Boleh. No, tak.
All right, everyone. We are now about to start. Please enjoy, yeah? Okay. Join me in welcoming Dr. Hijaz to the stage. Welcome, Dr. Hijaz.
Tinggi sikit deh. Macam mana? Okay, still morning, right? Okay, good morning, everyone. So while you're tucking into your breakfast, I think you can still listen to me lah, babble a bit about myself lah. Okay, later, maybe after 5 minutes you finish kan. So just to introduce, I'm Dr. Hijaz from Department of Geology. So I'm a geologist lah. Okay, but I'm also but my degree is in mechanical engineering, and I have a master's in petroleum engineering, and I'm currently the program coordinator for the petroleum geoscience master's program at geology lah. So I think it's a bit contradictory. I teach students how to extract oil and gas so that you guys can drive your car kan. At the same time, I'm also started some research lah in carbon capture, utilization and storage lah kan. Kan. So I guess I'm atoning for my sins lah kan. Since I'm probably creating the next generation of petroleum engineers kan. Okay, but the fact is we are a society that consume, kan? We are producing CO2 because we are driving cars, we are buying clothes, we are buying one smartphone, two smartphones like me, kan? So we are contributing to pollution and the CO2, and it's having an adverse effect on our life, kan? I'm 39 this year, so I was born in 86. Very glamorous decade, kan? Nice music, okay, not like now. I listen to Live FM only. I don't listen to the other radios. I don't know what new music you guys listen to. So I grew up. We grew up through a different environment, in my opinion. So while growing up, we wear sweaters when we go to school in the morning. Okay, 7 a.m. Now 7 a.m. we wake up sweating. Correct. Kan? So because we're older, us that are in the 40s, we do notice the change in our environment. Okay, so the rains have become different, floodings has become more frequent. So this is some things that the younger generation may not notice, maybe because you have your smartphones, kan? You like watch, kan? So for us, we are a bit different, kan? Because probably we play around outside more than the younger generation. So it's actually pretty sad lah. And also, actually, I grew up with anxiety about global cataclysm because of environmental catastrophe. I watched TV series like Sequest. Anyone watch Waterworld? During that time, Kevin Costner, he was the hot guy. During that time, the Hollywood actors were real men. They're not like macam pondan. Okay, different kan. Our standards were different kan. So I don't know why you guys like this Korean men that look feminine kan. I don't know, but that's the generational change kan. So like Waterworld is about, the earth was most of the earth was submerged in the ocean because the ice caps melted, kan? So all people were like living like in the Mad Max, living in the ocean, killing each other for water, food, women. Okay, horrible movie actually. It's very scary. But I was really worried. I was I was in standard 5. I was 11 or 12 lah. Okay, so imagine I was really anxious. Like, oh man, is the world's going to be in the ocean when I'm adult? Now I'm 39, kan? So it's like a bit exaggerated lah. But the science about global cataclysm due to humanity's consumption, kan, due to CO2 actually is being what I call settled down lah, kan. We have enough data by scientists that show that at one time when the CO2 concentration of the earth was the highest, actually there was a lot of impact on the climate change, right? Okay, before this, a lot of the governments were skeptical. Okay, they didn't believe the scientists. So there's no data. Yeah, that's what the government. Show us the data. And I think in the past 10 to 20 years, the data was solid. We collected data from the ice, from geologists. Can we study the earth? We study the processes of the earth. So geologists, for example, collect the bubbles trapped in the ice cap. Okay, because the bubbles from 20,000 years ago, they were somehow trapped in the ice, and they collect that air to measure the CO2 concentration at different periods of time within the Earth's history. Okay, so that data is very solid, validated, peer-reviewed, and this data became the basis for Paris Agreement, IPCC, COP, and all the governments, most of the governments around the world accept the data, so they agree. We are suffering climate change due to increase of greenhouse gases, mostly CO2 lah. CO2 is responsible, I think, up to 90% of the greenhouse effect, kan? So it's warming our Earth, causing changes to our weather patterns, to the ocean currents, and your generation or your children may face more floodings, hurricanes, storms lah, kan? It's a reality, kan? So we put what I call safeguards through IPCC, COP to limit the temperature rise, kan? So that we probably have a better chance at surviving all the cataclysms again. Okay, maybe the Earth will not be submerged in the ocean, but it can be bad enough. We can see a lot of storms, flooding affecting even Western and developed countries. So don't say, oh, my country is rich. Netherlands, even they, with their amazing dikes and polders, they're also suffering the effects of climate change. Entire islands in the Pacific are being swollen by the sea, kan? China too, kan? You're facing droughts, kan? A lot of Chinese here, kan? Northern China having water crisis, kan? They're building a big canal to transfer 80 billion tons of water. It's still not enough. Okay, because now there's less water, less rain in northern China. The rain is very important. Taiwan, they're having, for several years, they have no typhoon. The typhoon that they hate is important to replenish the water. Then they have no typhoon, they have no water. Then affect their factories, which affect the production of the semiconductors, kan? So the climate change will impact everyone, kan? But the impact is different depending when you are. Some places get it worse, some get it less, kan? But even Malaysia, sometimes we are facing very, very weird weather patterns, frequent floodings and storms. Even now we are suffering from very hot weather, kan? Okay? In fact, we're supposed to be in the monsoon season. It's supposed to be hot on the East Coast. Now it's dry here. We're supposed to have more rain. So that's the reality of climate change. Okay, so let's start my slide. So I was just talking a bit so that while you're eating, so we can start. Okay, this is the outline of my presentation lah. So actually, I'm going to talk about one of my IIRG and UM Living Labs project, which is actually focused on carbon capture, utilization, and storage using mineral carbonation lah, and how it can be applied on campus and also scale up to maybe to the Kuala Lumpur and also on the national level lah, and to talk about the opportunities and the challenges. Okay, climate context lah. So I'm going to focus on the two industry lah, because the solution I use in my projects is focused on the construction industry and also agriculture. Okay, looking at the global CO2 emission, kan? So annually humanity produce around 40 billion, but it's an approximation, 40 billion tons of CO2. Malaysia is around 400 million, kan? Only 1%. Okay, of course, different countries have different emissions profile. Okay, like Malaysia, for example, in the cement industry globally is around 8%, but Malaysia is 4%. Okay, but construction industry in Malaysia contribute up to 24% of the national CO2 emission. For agriculture, global emission, agriculture is actually a big contributor lah. So you think that, oh, we're planting vegetables, fruit trees should be less, but no. Agriculture activities contribute 30% of global CO2 emissions. Kan? In Malaysia, it's much smaller lah. I think agriculture in Malaysia is it's not as big as in China or US. It's only 8% lah, because you have to wonder why agriculture contributes very high CO2 emissions. You have to imagine when you cut down the forest, you dug out the soil, you're actually releasing a lot of CO2 from the soil. Okay, that's where the geologists come in. We also examine about carbon CO2 storage, sequestration in soil. Okay, so we try to understand why CO2 is being released during agriculture activities, and we are also trying to reverse that process, which is actually part of the solution I propose in the Living Labs. So this is actually just some charts okay, about CO2 emissions by fuel or industry type in Malaysia. Of course, the biggest contributor is power generation, fuel, that's almost 40%. Construction around 25%, agriculture 10%. Okay, so a lot of we are actually not a big contributor. It's just 0.8% current data . There's a website that tracks CO2 emission by country . So Malaysia, we only around 1% of global emissions. Probably a Chinese city probably produce more CO2 than Malaysia. If you compare population-wise, 35 million, that's probably the population of a tier 1 Chinese city. So whatever reduction we do, if US or China increase a bit, just, but it's okay. We still have to do our part because we have a commitment to the Paris Agreement, COP. So it's actually a political commitment. Any government that's ruling, okay, if they fail to achieve the commitment to the COP and IPCC, is going to be a political liability. Okay, so it's no longer something like a side project. It is part of government policy. And just to show the profile of CO2 emission by industry. So I just mentioned is electricity, because Malaysia uses CO2 coal for our primary source of energy. 70% of electricity comes from coal, 10% hydroelectricity, 20% gas and oil. So actually we need to diversify our energy mix. It's not possible for us to completely eliminate coal. So there are suggestions probably to use nuclear energy, for example. Nuclear energy is dangerous because of the radiation and radioactivity, but it actually doesn't produce any CO2. Okay. Of course, there are already established SOP to manage the radioactivity, and I'm actually for nuclear energy. So the government now is already now open to nuclear energy now. It was actually not part of the government policy I think several years ago. So we have some students who were sent to US to study nuclear energy. They come back to Malaysia jobless. Okay, but now it's starting back up Okay, so a good time to be a nuclear scientist. Okay, so I'm focusing on the construction and agriculture So this is around it's around 30% of the total emission. Okay, this is just to show the share of Malaysia's CO2 emission by global standard 0.8%, I think. It's very small, but it's increasing Maybe to the economy say, oh, it's good. It's a sign of economic activity because sometimes instead of measuring by GDP, they track by electricity consumption, which actually contributes to CO2 emissions. For example, our coal consumption actually doubled from early 2000s to 2015. That's based on the paper because we are industrializing rapidly, and even our EVs probably will contribute to the electricity consumption. Okay, let's see Malaysia's CCUS landscape in terms of regulation. Because after Malaysia's signed up to the IPCC, COP, Paris Agreement, a lot of regulation and laws and acts are being implemented to actually make CCUS integral part of Malaysia's goal to achieve the carbon targets So investments, the governments are like buying electric buses, the politicians are going around planting trees, So those are just part of the solution. So to solve the CO2 emission, we need what you call a portfolio of solutions lah, kan? It's not just planting trees, buying EVs. We need to explore as much solutions, kan? Targeting all the industry in Malaysia, okay? And government plays a very role because government is power. It's not the businesses, okay? Whatever the government tells the business, they have to follow, okay? For example, actually, when we started our IRG project to use, we proposed using to trap CO2 in concrete. One of my colleague, our collaborator, met with a big cement company. Dah jumpa physically, okay? So the company, so during that time, it was early 2022 lah. So there was a lot of the regulation was not even implemented or even discussed. So the company says, we're not interested. Straight to our face, to his face lah, to my colleague's face. They kata they're not interested. We're not doing this. Why? Yeah, because they think doing this will add burden to their business, kan? Will affect their bottom line. So businesses naturally they will resist all the CO2 emission curb. Okay, if possible they will fight it for money. Okay, but if the government put into regulation, they will have to follow. So I think the Prime Minister, I think since last year I think earlier this year, kan, so they are implementing something like carbon tax eventually, later lah, kan. They buat SSD dulu, okay. So the companies will need to comply with this law, kan. So they must reduce their CO2 emissions. It's not just within Malaysia. The European Union and I think they are also implementing their own regulation called CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Okay, this is worrying the developing countries because in order to trade in the European Union, you must show that you are doing CCUS or reducing your CO2 emissions. So a lot of companies are trying to, sometimes they try to offset their CO2 emission, or they are, okay, so just pay someone lah, okay, you already capture 2 tons of CO2, I'll buy it for $1,000, okay. That's how Tesla makes money. They don't really make money from selling the cars. Not all lah. Some of their profit is from selling their CO2 emission reduction as carbon credits to General Motors, Toyota. Okay, it's a big business, carbon credit, if it's regulated. Okay, so now the Malaysian government is seriously will implement the carbon tax lah. It's not implemented yet. We'll see lah. We'll be like flip flop. Biasalah, kan. We're gonna get feedback from the companies lobbying. But it will be implemented eventually lah, okay? Even I think Dr. Fong already summarized quite well about UM's targets. UM also have goals to become a sustainable campus. They participate in the UI Green Index, and UM has done very well, kan? In my opinion, we're doing very well because we are a tropical country. I think I really always enjoy driving around UM. There's a lot of trees, kan? Very green. So I think naturally we have that advantage lah. But I think we have a lot of areas for improvement. For example, I think a lot of our residential colleges are further apart, kan? So people tend to have to ride bus, drive cars, take motorcycles, kan? It's better if we have a more compact environment lah, which is common in, I studied in Australia. So the campuses are very compact. So you don't really need to, you want to go to another faculty, just walk. Like here, you want to walk to faculty of engineering for science, it's like you're going to sweat. Okay. Of course, our weather discourage us from walking, kan. So I think like Singapore is very compact, so they can do it within the same climate. Okay, shouldn't be a problem. So I think we can learn from other countries near us how to improve our campus sustainability or make it so that people do not need to drive cars or ride a motorcycle, kan. Even the Vice Chancellor in his, I think earlier this year, he has this amanat lah. So he gave us like a lecture. He sent it by email or via the website. He says one of UM's primary objective is to become more sustainable and to reduce its carbon emission impact lah. Okay, I think this is also following the government's lead to address this carbon emission issues within Malaysia kan. Okay, as Malaysia's #1 university, I think it's normal have to lead the way lah. Okay, so that's why we have a lot of grants like Living Labs and other initiatives to find ways to reduce CO2 emissions and how to make it more sustainable and green and comply to most of the SDG goals. Okay. So this is some of the what I call metrics, rankings that participate in. Does quite well, but of course there's always room for improvement. Okay, the Living Labs, I think Dr. Fong, he's part of SDC, which issued the grants lah kan. So I received the grant same like Dr. Samila, okay, December last year, okay. So actually this Living Lab is not just a grant where we just hire a RA, publish paper and then finish. So this Living Lab is tailored so that the researchers have to share their findings with the community and we have to implement our solution live, not just publish paper, put in the shelf and then finish. That's what's happening in most grants lah kan. But this one, of course, we are compelled to implement it within campus. Okay, so no problem. I actually agree with the goals of the Living Labs lah. Okay, so emphasis on inclusivity. We also have to work with the supporting staff. For example, I'm working with the Estates Department, JHB, the department that is maintaining the facilities, to implement some of our solution on campus. Okay, this is a topic lah, carbon sequestration through basalt concrete and enhanced rock weathering. A sustainable infrastructure initiative for carbon neutrality goal, pretty long. Okay, so I'm a geologist kan, so my solution is using rocks to reduce CO2 emission. So I'm going to talk about how this is possible. Okay, the solution is called mineral carbonation lah. Okay, it's actually something very common in what I call it's a natural process. So to tell you just to tell a story lah. Okay, in geology we talk about millions of years lah in time scale kan. So you can imagine when the Earth was formed at one point, the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere was very, very high. Of course, during that time, probably there's no life. So the CO2 emissions, the CO2 in the atmosphere is so what I call concentrated, it reacts with the rocks or the minerals to form what we call calcite or calcium carbonate. It's like chalk. Okay? So actually, because of the process, 10% of the Earth's crust is calcium carbonate, and because of this process, we have a stable atmosphere. And this process occurs every day, not just with the rocks, but also with the ocean. Okay, and it's very well understood, and we can actually use this process artificially to capture CO2 into products. Okay, or we can inject the CO2 into the rocks underground so that it is stored as calcium carbonate. Okay, so if you read about the oil and gas industry carbon capture, what they do, they inject the CO2 into saline aquifer. So under the ground, it's not like a big reservoir of water lah. A lot of non-geologists think like there's a lake under the ground. It's actually sand. Okay, there's empty spaces between the sand, and that's where the oil and gas is. So when the oil and gas industry took out all the oil and gas, it becomes empty lah, or is filled with water lah, because the oil is taken out. So the idea is they want to inject the CO2 into this kind of water, store the CO2 inside the subsurface water. But this process is not, in my opinion, as a geologist, okay, you're putting gas under the ground. Okay, of course the gas will be dissolved in the water, but it needs to be deep enough. The pressure must be deep enough to contain, so that the gas remain solvent in the water. But sometimes it will become gas again and will try to escape. So a lot of the trials find a lot of leakages. Okay, so the oil and gas industry, they find challenges lah. And another way, besides putting into the aquifers under the ground, what the Europeans are doing, particularly in Iceland, they inject CO2 into the basalt basalt formation in Iceland. So because when the CO2 react with the basalt, okay, it becomes calcite, it becomes solid. So it doesn't leak, it becomes rock, okay? So that's simple. So why basalt can convert CO2 into calcite? So the key point is the ingredients in the basalt, okay? So certain minerals, especially those rich in iron, calcium, magnesium, when they react with the CO2, so the CO2 usually what happens in nature, the CO2 is dissolved in rainwater, okay? They fall to the ground, react with the basalt or other rocks that are rich in magnesium, calcium, and iron, and they became calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate or dolomite. Okay, so they became rocks, solid rock, which is very stable. Okay, if you go around the world, if you go to England, the UK, if you go to the cliffs of Dover, okay, so those cliffs at the coast of the UK facing France is made of chalk. It's kapo, chalk. Those are formed because of mineral carbonation for millions of years. Okay, it's been there for millions. It's become chalk and it stays chalk for millions of years. It's evidence that this process is a stable way to capture CO2. Okay, so what we propose in our IRG project, which we received in 2022, okay, we create a reactor. Okay, and then we react the basalt with CO2. It's actually not a rocket science because it's been done abroad. So what my colleagues and I are doing, we are localizing this technology. Okay, there are many ways to react the basalt or whatever rocks you want to react with CO2 in many ways. For us, we are simply using a mixer because we have a mixer. It's just a tank with a mixer. You mix it physically and then we inject CO2. And the parameters to encourage mineral carbonation so that the CO2 is converted to calcite is not very high. You don't need, the temperature is around 40 to 60 degrees. It's already well established by other research. For example, we refer to research in Poland. So they said, based on the experiment, 40 to 60 degrees is sufficient. So it doesn't consume much energy. And you have to understand, why we target concrete or cement, because every kilogram of concrete that you produce, you also produce 1 kilogram of CO2. Okay, so for Malaysia we produce around 40 million tons of CO2 per year lah, and that is based on our concrete production. Okay, so in this process we try to reverse that emission lah kan. So instead of course, if we do the life cycle, obviously we will probably emit CO2 lah while we're making the concrete. But if we can what I call neutralize that emission by trapping the CO2 back into the concrete, okay, so that we can reduce the carbon footprint in our construction materials. Okay. So this is just a picture from Google lah kan, okay. So this is actually the infographics we submitted for our IRG project. It's very similar, okay. So why you use basalt? Because of course, this mineral carbonation doesn't necessarily need basalt. It can use other rocks such as silicates, andesite, okay? You're not a geologist, so probably you don't know. So these are rocks that contain a lot of magnesium, calcium, and iron, kan? So naturally, they can react with the CO2 to form the calcite. But we can also use industrial waste, for example, waste concrete, because industrial or human waste is already concentrated, okay? I mean, we just demolished Shah Alam Stadium. Of course, we are too late lah. Already, I think it's gone to the garbage tip. We can actually use it for this process to capture CO2. Of course, different materials means that the amount of CO2 trapped per kilogram is different. Okay, so of course we need to measure lah. Okay, And then once we already create this basalt concrete, into which we inject the CO2, so the CO2 becomes calcite and is part of the concrete. So depending on the materials, we can actually generate 800 grams of calcite per kilogram of concrete, depending on the carbonation material. So the basalt, andesite, or the waste is what we call the carbonation material. Yeah. So of course, when we did this project, we start with a natural carbonation material first lah. But I think later on, we can actually experiment with other waste that we can source within Malaysia. Basalt, we can source it from places like Segamat, Kuantan, Tawau. Okay, actually it's not really a common rock in Malaysia, but it's very abundant in Indonesia. Basalt is a volcanic rock. Indonesian islands are volcanic islands. So even if we don't have much materials within Malaysia, like we don't have that much basalt compared to Indonesia, we are surrounded by volcanic islands. Okay. In Europe, basalt is common. You go to UK, Scotland, the rocks that you see is basalt. It's black. It's like granite, but it's darker color. All the cottages they built in Europe, some of it are using basalt rock. It's very common lah. It's also the rock that is making up the oceanic floor. So there's a lot of research by the Europeans and US to potentially store CO2 offshore, because on the ocean floor is all basalt. Okay, there's actually enough basalt within the earth crust to actually store most of the earth's CO2. Of course, we cannot do that lah kan. If we sequester all the CO2, it will cause other problems lah. But this material is abundant. We can actually use it to store CO2 into useful products. Okay, as part of our solution, our portfolio of solution to store or utilize CO2. Okay, so this is some of our pictures from our field work. Okay, so you can see the Segamat on the left is the Segamat basalt. We crushed it lah. Okay, if you look at the basalt in Segamat, you see all these whitish veins kan. So these are actually cracks or holes where the rainwater fall. Okay, the rainwater contains CO2 and then it react with the basalt and then it will form the calcite. So we see the calcite veins within the basalt rock in Kuantan, in Segamat. Okay, so it's a natural process. Probably hundreds or thousands of tons are sequestered by the natural basalt outcrops in Segamat. Okay, so Segamat ni we got the basalt from a quarry lah. So basalt doesn't have much commercial value. So Segamat is near to the EDTP. It's a rail line from Gemas to JB kan. So when they build the rail line, they use the rock as the ballast rock. Okay, after that the quarry closed. So we have a quarry which can supply the basalt to the construction industry lah. And I think it can. I think it at least produce several million tons of basalt for if we want to use it for concrete in Malaysia lah. And yeah, and we do the petrology lah. This is the process that geologists do. We look under the microscope and we could see the minerals lah. For example, Segamat, the minerals that contain the iron, calcium and magnesium is what we call plagioclase, olivine, pyroxene lah. Okay, in Segamat we have pyroxene and olivine, and it's around 50% of the weight percentage, which I think is sufficient lah. Probably not the best, but it's comparable to other basalts in US, which they use for the same process for mineral carbonation lah. Okay, so the US they also use something similar, also use basalt in their concrete to capture CO2. Okay, and they have the report is comparable lah to the Segamat basalt. So we want to confirm that it's suitable for mineral carbonation. Okay, this is what I call the mineralogical analysis. Okay, and then of course we have to make the reactor. To react the CO2 with the basalt or whatever carbonation material, there's a lot of strategies. For us, we use the simplest lah. We have a mixer and then we inject the CO2 at ambient temperature and pressure. Of course, our reactor can be improved. Other methods, for example, in the US, they bake the cement in an oven, they inject CO2. It's very simple. Of course, they use it at the industrial scale lah. Okay. In Australia, they have a slurry. They crush they use silicates, not basalt. Similar lah. It's a similar rock like basalt. Okay, but it's igneous. It's I think metamorphic rock. Okay, so so they make it into a slurry and they bubble CO2. Okay, it depends on their whatever equipment they have. So it's not rocket science. So there's a lot of strategies lah. Probably the final detail is the efficiency. Okay, so for us, because we only get our grant is not that big, so we use the mixer because we have one at engineering. Okay, and of course after we do the mixing and the injection, we have to confirm that the CO2 is within the material. So we have to measure it lah. So we have the TG analysis, thermogrammetric analysis, to confirm, to measure the weight difference between and before and after the carbonation. Okay, science things lah kan. Okay, but it's very simple. The equipment, we have the equipment and the analytical tools in UM to do so. So this is a mixer. So this is a small mixer. We tested at a bench scale, a small scale first. Okay, this is by my colleague Dr. Rida from engineering. Okay, so they just mix the crushed basalt with water and then inject the CO2. Okay, so I mentioned before, I mentioned that basalt is not really common. I mean, geologically, it's not as abundant in Malaysia as Indonesia, but this is actually a precursor to potentially testing other materials within Malaysia. We have a lot of other rocks that can react with CO2, like andesite. Okay, we already received samples from iron mine in Johor. The CEO sent me the sample lah. And also we found during the fieldwork in Gua Musang, we also found andesite. So there's potentially additional research to see what other carbonation materials are in Malaysia, and also we can use other waste materials such as waste concrete. Okay, fly ash from coal power plants, fly ash from the coal power plants. Okay, I think probably if Malaysia wants to build, like Malaysia is building more incinerators, so the waste, the ash from the incinerator can potentially be used as a carbonation material. Of course, we need to confirm lah how these materials capture CO2 compared to the baseline natural materials like basalt. Okay, so the benefit, of course lah, is easy to understand. It's a natural process. It's confirmed can capture CO2. So we have to design what I call artificial way to sequester CO2 into useful products lah. For this case, we want to use it in concrete because I think you all see in Malaysia, we are in KL lah. We are living within the concrete jungle. It's a very easy material. It's cheap. Okay, and because of weather, it doesn't need insulation again. In Australia, they don't use concrete because it doesn't insulate well against in winter. Like in Malaysia, we just use concrete. It's easy. And for your information, buildings that are more than 50 years are most likely to be demolished lah. Okay, we're going to have the Urban Renewal Act. Sometimes new buildings are demolished to build higher buildings. So Malaysia is already 65 years kan, around that lah kan. So a lot of our buildings are reaching the end of life, and there's potential we will have a lot of this concrete waste lying around, which we can actually use for recycling into the new concrete, and at the same time sequester CO2 into this concrete. And also we can actually reduce the consumption of Portland cement. Portland cement is the binder or the cement used for the fresh concrete kan. So there's a potential we can use the basalt or the waste products, which are the carbonation agents, as a replacement for cement. So it means that we do not have to destroy a lot of limestone hills for the Portland cement kan. If you drive to Ipoh kan, all these beautiful limestone hills are being destroyed to supply the cement for the construction industry. Okay, so just some pictures lah. This is what our IRD project, and our two PhD students, Aizaz and Amir, they're Pakistani and Iranian. Okay, so this is the mixer. So this is scale up mixer. Okay, I showed before this a small bench scale for parameter optimization. So once we understand the optimized parameter, we use it in this mixer. It's very simple. It's just a concrete mixer, and we inject the CO2 into the mixer. Of course, the limitation is that pressure is not important. It's the temperature. So we are unable to we are unable to increase the temperature to the optimal 40 to 60 degrees because we don't have a way to heat up. Okay, so we just try this as our trial okay, and we already made the first brick on 22nd May. Okay, our first basalt concrete that came out of the mold, and we are, of course, we are measuring how much CO2 is being trapped We are sending up to the TGA lab. Okay, very simple. Okay, not that difficult. Okay, of course, there's always room for improvement with better equipment, and we are proposing to use this on campus Of course, our goal is to for the RG project, we hope that the DBKL or City Hall will use it as for their. Of course, we're not going to use it for skyscrapers, housing, because it's still like a research phase. Properly, we use it for non-structural applications, like that concrete ramp, non-structural. Pavements, tiles, okay, and we can also use it for paint, actually, okay. Okay, so that is what we did for the RD project, and also the UM Labs is to use mineral carbonation in concrete. Okay, but mineral carbonation can also be used in the second application. We call it enhanced rock weathering. It's the same process, but when we use it in agriculture or for soil sequestration, it's called enhanced rock weathering, which is actually same as mineral carbonation. It's the same process. It's also natural. Okay, so the soil that contains iron, magnesium, and calcium-rich minerals will react with the CO2 from the rain, and then form the calcite particles in the soil. It's also natural, but we can accelerate the carbon sequestration if we can introduce additional carbonation materials like crushed basalt or crushed silicates. Okay, same process. Okay, okay. If you want to look at the equation, you can just Google it. And so what happens is that similar to what happened to the basalt the CO2 that is dissolved in the rainwater falls to the soil, and if the soil is rich in minerals that contain iron, magnesium, and calcium, it will form the calcium carbonate. It's also beneficial for the soil because it actually reduces the acidity of the soil. So in a sense, it's very good for application in plantations. And there's also a lot of field trials in Europe. Actually, the first field trial of enhanced rock weathering in tropical climate is done in Sabah by University of Southampton. So they collaborated with Wilma Plantation based on their 3-year trial. So they applied the basalt for 3 years. They published 2 years ago based on their result. By introducing basalt, each hectare sequestered an additional 1 ton of CO2. Okay? Because by adding this basalt. Of course, they need a longer trial period. They preferably 10 years. But within 3 years, the basalt helps the soil to absorb 1 ton of additional CO2 per hectare. Okay, and actually I'm applying for a grant with the FRGS to apply this in UM's plantation in Guamusang or Johor Skudai. I forgot. So UM has their own plantation, and they agree for us to use their plantations once we get the money But okay. So enhanced rock weathering, I mentioned of course it captures CO2. It's also beneficial for the soil because it reduces the acidity, which means that it's good for whatever plants you're planting. And also it helps to reduce the acidity of the water Okay, the water, if the water becomes less acid or become more alkaline, it also helps to absorb CO2. So you have to remember a lot of the CO2 is absorbed by water bodies including the ocean, lakes, and river. And the capacity to absorb the CO2 is depend on the alkalinity. Okay. So of course, we want to apply this mineral carbonation in the concrete structures around UM. I mentioned in non-structural application like pathway and walkways. I think instead of the Europe Institute, they have this rock garden kan. Maybe we can replace that with our basalt concrete kan. I was wondering, oh, there's a rock garden there. Even geology doesn't have a rock garden. And of course, we have rimba ilmu, our gardens kan. We can actually potentially use apply enhanced rock weathering on campus lah. We don't really need to use basalt because right now the nearest source is Segamat. The quarry is closed. Okay, but there are a lot. If you go to Shopee, you find gardening lava rocks. These are from Indonesia, and I actually got the sample and test in our XRF. Similar to not as good as basalt, but it contains the same minerals that can sequester CO2 lah through mineral carbonation. So probably we're going to source some, okay, for the same supplier that I already tested the sample, and probably use it in UM for several months, and then I will collect the samples to measure lah, to confirm that the carbonation or mineral carbonation is occurring. Okay, so by doing this, we can potentially enhance UM's carbon sink potential lah kan. We are accelerating the carbon sequestration into the soil and also actively utilize CO2 into our infrastructure. Hopefully when, I don't know, maybe UM going to tear this KDK, kan, eventually it's going to be demolished, probably the regulation will be set in place, make it compulsory to use this kind of concrete which sequesters CO2. Maybe, kan. Maybe they're going to do it in 2050, kan, but I'm going to retire in 2059, so I may not see it lah. Okay. So we are continuing data collection. So it's not just I'm going to put it into the pavement and then we forget. Of course, my colleagues and I and our students will continuously, periodically collect samples lah, kan. Break some rocks from the pavement, collect the water from the soil to just monitor lah the mineral carbonation. We can actually measure the cations lah. Okay, so the reaction will produce more cations and it will indicate the mineral carbonation is occurring. So it's going to be a long term lah. So I hope we are living lab. SDC, you have to consider this kind of things take years lah, not 1 year. So please give us a chance lah, kan, or give us more money so that we can do it for 3 years. Okay, so this is the data. So we're going to use this opportunity to do the start data collection lah. Can also feed into the UMSDC database lah, kan, about how much CO2 is being absorbed. So we actually using science to confirm the carbon sink potential of UM, and then we can report it and publish papers and probably encourage the. And then we are also talking with Meranti Might. Okay, these are for potential pathway to commercialization. And we just met with DBKL 30 May because we already had the prototype. So we brought to them. Before that, we were reluctant because we have nothing to show. So we have something to show, and they were interested because, you know lah, you go to Shah Alam, Bandaraya rendah concrete. So it's actually, I think it is their KPI. Okay. So I think there's a potential this can be implemented maybe by MBPJ or DBKL lah. But because we are in KL, we naturally engage DBKL lah. Okay. So this is just relevance lah. Of course, is comply to the goals of sustainability, carbon emission and reduction targets, and also all the national targets lah. Commitments to IPCC, COP lah. So we're doing good things. We're trying to reduce CO2 actively lah. So mineral carbonation can be one of the portfolio to reduce Malaysia's CO2 emission alongside planting trees, but EV bus, okay, finding alternative fuels, okay. Scalability and translation is very easy, kan? You want to create more concrete or basalt concrete, make a bigger plant. Okay, scalability is there and it's not rocket science. It's already been done in Australia and US. We are trying to localize it lah, kan, making Malaysia own technology lah, or our domestic capability. Challenges, of course, we need to do the life cycle analysis, kan. Along the way we have to break the basalt concrete, transport it, make the concrete. Along the way, within that supply chain, CO2 is emitted. We need to know, is there a net emission of CO2 or a net reduction of CO2? So this is a long-term target, and there's a lot of opportunity for improvements. future directions, we want to have a pilot plant. Okay, this is what we are following. One company in Australia is a startup. They already built, I think, a 500-ton pilot plant. And then they said if they want to build a 50 million ton capacity of to convert CO2 into this this concrete. They say if they can build 10 of it, they can eliminate Australia's CO2 emission. That's what they claim okay. So that's a natural path to scale up our implementation of this basalt concrete. Okay. So key takeaways, we can actually implement research done by people like us on campus We want to, it'll be a good way to showcase the practicality of our research, which we can promote to other stakeholders or companies who want to adopt. It's also dual approach, enhance so makes UM carbon sink, alignment with national and UM goals with regards to SDG, sustainability and CO2 reduction goals, and also industry relevance, because with the carbon tax coming in, companies are compelled to find ways to reduce the CO2 emission. And for our project, we provide the solution for the construction industry and also the plantation sector. And acknowledgements to all the collaborators in this project, my collaborators in the RJ project, UM Living Labs, and also Dr. Samila. This is a good way to communicate our findings and our research. And this is all the researcher and the PhD students. And the end Q&A. Okay, I think my video, it's too long already, so I'll stop this. But I have a video. I think maybe you guys can, I'll share it later Okay? Or can we play? Okay. So this is part of the RD grant. We have to do a promotional video. So I think they will give a good wrap up of what we're doing.
With growing urbanization and industrialization, the construction sector is one of the largest contributors to global carbon emissions. But what if we could turn this challenge into an opportunity? Imagine a future where our cities are built not just with concrete, but with a vision for a greener, cleaner world. This is the future we're working towards with our research on mineral carbonation. Introducing our research project, Mineral Carbonation for Carbon Capture and Utilization in Malaysian Basalt Formation and Concrete. This innovative approach aims to reduce carbon emissions by capturing CO2 into basalts and in concrete. Malaysia is abundant with potential carbonation agents, such as basalt, which can be used to capture, store, and utilize CO2 in construction materials such as concrete. This innovative approach aims to reduce Malaysia's CO2 emissions in the construction sector, which accounts for 15% of the country's CO2 emissions. Mineral carbonation is a process in which CO2 reacts with naturally occurring minerals, such as those found in basalt formations to form stable carbonates. This method can be used for carbon capture, utilization and storage, or CCUS. Here's how it works. Carbon dioxide is captured from industrial emissions and injected into basalt rock formations. Through a chemical reaction, the CO2 reacts with the minerals to form solid carbonates, effectively locking away the carbon in solid form. But we don't stop there. We plan to integrate mineral carbonation into concrete production to store and utilize CO2 into buildings and other concrete infrastructure. Mineral carbonation large potential for offsetting a large amount of the 40 million tons of CO2 produced by the Malaysian construction industry annually.
I'm Dr. Hijaz Kamal Hasnan, and I'm the principal investigator for work package 1 for this project. So what I have here is a basaltic rock, Mr. Gamat, and I'm in the middle of a quarry, Mr. Gamat, where basalt was used extensively for the ballast rock in the railway nearby. So now what we have here in my hand is a basalt rock, which is rich in
iron, magnesium, and calcium minerals such as pyroxene and plagioclase. So what happens in nature is that CO2 is dissolved in the rainwater and falls to the earth and react with the basaltic rock to convert the CO2 into calcium carbonate, okay, or calcite. So if you look at some of the rocks, you can see some of the white veins embedded within the basalt rock. So these are signs that the CO2 reacts with the basalt rock and converted into calcites. So we can actually use the basaltic rocks as a carbonation agent in concrete in Malaysia. So based on our mineralogical analysis, this rock is suitable for mineral carbonation, and we propose to use this rock in concrete in work package 3 to create carbon neutral concrete which can trap CO2 into the concrete Okay, by doing that, we hope to build a carbon neutral concrete that can be used in Malaysia to offset the CO2 emissions emitted by the construction industry.
Work package number 2 focuses on optimization of mineral carbonation to convert CO2 into carbonates minerals. The novel mineral carbonation chamber is designed to precisely control temperature, pressure, and mechanistic mixing of basalt. It features an integrated heating and cooling system for accurate temperature regulation, a high-pressure control system to simulate various geological conditions, and a sophisticated mixing mechanism to ensure uniform basalt particle dispersion. The chamber includes sensors for continuous monitoring and data acquisition, providing essential insights into the carbonation process. Its modular designs allow for easy adjustment and scalability, enabling various experimental setups and industrial applications. These advanced chambers enhances CO2 sequestration efficiency by optimizing the carbonation rate of basalts.
This project centers on the design and implementation of a novel mineral carbonation chamber to study the carbonation rate of basalt, which characterized from work package 1. The innovative chambers not only allows us to mechanistic mixing of basalt powder through different mineral carbonation routes, but also precisely allows us precisely control different reaction parameters such as pressure, temperature, during the carbonation process. Our research revealed that these factors significantly influence on the rate of carbonation. Basalt particle size, temperatures, and some aqueous conditions notably improve the efficiency of the carbonation process. By optimizing these parameters through the reaction process, the study demonstrates that the potential for enhanced CO2 sequestration using basalt powder, contributing to more effective strategies for mitigating CO2 emissions and sustainable development.
Hello, I'm Zahiruddin. So I'm the work package 3 leader. So with the basalt rock that was collected and processed in work packages 1 and 2, what we plan to do is we are going to embed this basaltic rock as number 1, aggregates for the concrete, and number 2 as cement replacement agent that will be used in the production of non-structural concrete application. So we are making concrete with the basalt aggregates and cement replacement additive for the work package 3, and we are going to showcase this as a non-structural concrete application in the form of pavement blocks and other non-structural applications that shows the potential of carbon sequestration using basalt aggregates.
By integrating mineral carbonation into concrete production, we can significantly reduce CO2 emissions, create more sustainable cities, and contribute to the global fight against climate change. So, join us in revolutionizing the construction industry and paving the way for a sustainable future. Let's turn carbon emissions into concrete solutions by integrating the mineral carbonation for carbon capture and utilization in Malaysian basalt formation in concrete.
Okay, so any questions?
Can we get a round of applause to Dr. Hijaz? Thank you, Doctor. Very insightful. We do have few questions came through. Before that, Doctor, I would like to ask for this specific technology that you presented, right? Do we have a patent for it already, and what's the progress in real application in the construction sector?
Currently, we don't have a patent for it, but I think we are planning to, I think we want to have an IP for this product lah. For our, for work package 2, work package 1 is just a geological analysis. We're not making any products or technology. For work package 2, Dr. Rida plan to bring it to one of these science exhibition lah, and then apply for IP. Okay, and also Dr. Zahiruddin also wants to do IP first. I think eventually we want to do a patent lah, but we do step by step first. Application wise, we are working with JHB to identify a site, preferably around the library or Perdana Siswa, to use the basalt concrete, what I call bricks lah, for the pavement lah, probably just a small area lah, kan, and also probably implement enhanced rock weathering lah, on some of the potted garden, potted plants lah around lah, because we can collect the water samples more effectively for an analysis. And we are working, talking to DBKL. They shown interest to use our concrete lah. They said we are the first researcher to approach them with this idea lah. So we just met them on 30th. Dr. Zahir met them on 30th May. So we will follow up to probably see opportunities to implement in DBKL lah eventually.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. We do have another 2 more questions. The first one is, how often is data being collected for this, and what is the duration of the monitoring period?
I think for the concrete, of course, after we make the batch, we collect the sample immediately lah. Okay. Once we use it at the pavement, we will periodically. I think shouldn't be that frequent lah, because carbonation also occur after the concrete is set on the ground, because the chemical reaction is continuously. So we also want to observe that. So I think probably maybe 2 to 1 month frequency lah. Okay. Of course, along the way, when we collect the samples like week or 2 weeks, we will see the change in the data lah. So we will adapt accordingly. For enhanced rock weathering, I think over similar periodic, probably similar rate of data collection lah. Probably 2 weeks or 1 month lah. Because enhanced rock is a bit slower. Okay, so I think we need to have a longer period of data collection to confirm that the cations are released. Okay, because you have to understand, we put not crushed powder basalt, we just like a small sandy basalt. So it's gonna be slower than in the concrete lah. Okay.
Okay, Doctor, very last question. What kind of policy support or regulations do you expect to move this further?
Okay, I'm very, for me, what the regulation that is catching my eye is the carbon tax. Okay, because I think it will compel CO2 intensive industry to either they have to offset the CO2 or invest in technology lah. Maybe they can invest in our, I don't know, I'm not too ambitious, but if we have a startup or spin-off company that can generate the basalt concrete, and then and then they buy it, invest it to offset the CO2 emission. So this is what happening in Australia. MCI Carbon is a spin-off company from the Australian National University, which is where I graduated my PhD from. So they have a spin-off company invested by Japanese banks and companies so that they can offset the CO2 emission in Japan. Okay, so that's probably a model we want to follow. Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hijaz. Any questions from the floor? Okay, we have one here. Yep.
Hi, thank you, Doctor. It's very interesting. Just wondering, what is the durability of the concrete? Will there be like any chemical process that can decompose the bauxite salt and release the carbon dioxide again?
Unless you pour acid on it lah. But I think the carbonate will be stable for a very long time. That's why I mentioned the Dover Cliffs in UK. This Dover Cliffs is been there for millions of years. Of course, there is, eroded by the ocean lah. But even in nature, it is very durable because it's rock. Even if they dissolve in the ocean, it become more alkaline. It's actually helping the ocean become less acidic. Of course, in terms of durability, Dr. Zahid is a concrete expert. He says because one thing, bauxite is very dense, it's very heavy, so it's not suitable for high-rise buildings, probably for low-rise buildings. But US already, some of the federal buildings, you can see in YouTube, one of the federal buildings, they use basalt concrete as a demonstration. It's like, I think 5 stories. So people building like tall skyscraper will be reactive because it's very heavy. It's going to add to the structural issue. So that's why we recommend it to use initially for non-structural applications. But in terms of durability, it's probably similar as normal concrete. Okay, unless it's an acid. Yeah, of course, acid rain may dissolve, but I think the leakages risk is less, very low.
Thank you.
All right, is there any more questions? Anyone? No? Okay, if that's so, Doctor, please remain on stage for the token of appreciation. Welcome, Dr. Sarmila.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sarmila, and once again, thank you, Dr. Hijaz, for your valuable contribution. So we are now approaching our lunch break time, but as usual, the food's still on the way. Sorry for the delay, yeah. Okay, so we will now take a lunch break, and we'll see you back here at 2 p.m. Okay, yeah? Sorry? Okay, we're cutting short because we had such an amazing time with our speakers, yeah? Okay, so 1:30, is that okay? 1:30, yeah? See you again at 1:30. Enjoy your meal, but have to wait for the food to arrive. How about the...
So we will share the attendance here shortly.